Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and today I'm live. I'm live for the first time in a while, and it feels pretty good actually, because this is how the Healing Home got its start, was going live every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. And since that time, I've begun to do more pre-recorded episodes with different guests and things like that. But today I wanted to do a live because I've been having a lot of thoughts about mugwort in a very different way than I've always looked at this plant, and in a different way that I typically hear about this plant, particularly here in the West. So, we're going to get into that today, and this is one of my all-time favorite plants. People who know me, who have been following me for a while, probably have heard me speak about mugwort a lot in high regard, and that's why I'm here today to talk about my musings. And I wanted to show everybody this glorious bouquet of mugwort that I brought in here with me today. All of this mugwort is from our garden, 3 different varieties here. It smells beautiful. It is in its full, beautiful form right now. It's doing really well. So it is here with us in today's stream. And, before I really start getting into it, I want to just remind everybody that for all things Healing Home, you can head to michelleshealinghome.com, where you can find my blog, my online store, more information about me, more information about the podcast. And it's just a good way to keep up with me over on my website. So you can do that. If you have any other questions or what have you about anything, head to michelleshealinghome.com. Now, I have prepared a slideshow today. Mario helped me do that. And I'm going to pull up the slides because I just want to jump right into this right away, because I do have a handful of things I want to touch on. And the biggest thing for me that I wanted to just get across is that I have been learning more about mugwort since I've been looking at it from a different perspective. And what do you know? As soon as you start looking at things from a different perspective, a lot of times new things pop up. You start to realize new, awesome, underlying, hidden things about the thing that you are looking into. And that's what's been happening with mugwort for me over the past probably 6 months or so, maybe a little bit more, because I started doing a little more digging and more research on mugwort from a different perspective outside of the Western um, outlook on the plant. And with that, I've come across a lot of really cool things that I've begun to apply to my own life. And so that's why I'm doing a show on it. So let's pull up these slides. All right. So right here, we have some mugwort. This is mugwort Douglasiana. This is a mugwort that likes to grow in the western part of the United States, particularly up here in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes this is also called California mugwort. So that is one of the other reasons why it's known as a Western mugwort, is because it grows in the West here. But so mugwort, this is a picture I took last year, and I love this photo because of the way the light is hitting it. And it's just such a beautiful place to be with the mugwort patch in the morning, because it's really calm and there's a lot of just beautiful vibes that come through in the morning, particularly in my opinion, with mugwort. And it always comes through strong for me. This plant does. Always has. I feel like it always will. But it came in a little differently for me this go around, this season. And it's because of what I was talking about when I started the show, was that I started to look at it from a different perspective. And so I've begun to correspond mugwort more closely with Venus. And if anyone out there who is interested in astro herbs and correspondences with planets and plants, you may have already heard that sometimes mugwort is corresponded with Venus. This is not a new thing that I've invented or anything like that. But a lot of times here in the West particular, it's usually associated with the moon. And there is great reason for that. And I really do feel like there is a strong moon connection with this plant, for many reasons that I am going to get into. But what I'm starting to realize is that since I've started to lean into the Venusian connection, I'm seeing way more evidence that this plant corresponds more strongly, perhaps, with Venus. And that is one of the main reasons why I'm here today is to talk about the Venusian connection with mugwort and how strong I'm feeling it, I'm seeing it, and the medicine that I'm creating with mugwort when I'm looking at it from a Venusian standpoint and working with it on the day of Venus, working with it in the time of Venus, working with it during the season of Taurus and in May, which is also Taurus ruled by Venus. I've just noticed all these new things about it. And so that's what I want to share. And so the thing that I see the most is that I think that Venus has such a strong motherly connection to the primordial mother, to the original source. I think that there is a beauty and a nurturing standpoint from of Venus that comes through with mugwort. And I think a lot of times it's usually associated with a crone. And sometimes mugwort is also known as cronewort. So that in and of itself kind of comes back to this primordial nurturing mother energy that I feel like is so strongly connected to Venus. And I kind of started to question the connection, this crone connection to the moon and the connection to a mother and the moon. And I understand that every woman, we have a monthly cycle, which is typically guided by the moon or it's associated with the moon. But I will say that ever since I came across the research of Ola Wolney, who points out the fact that she believes, and from all her research, it seems pretty clear to her that a woman's cycle is actually more dictated by Venus, and that the more accurate way to look at a woman's cycle is through the lens of Venus, and that Venus is more of the guide when it comes to that, and that women actually perhaps aren't meant to menstruate every single month. It may be that we're supposed to be menstruating less, which would line up with the Venusian connection a little bit more because the cycles of Venus are longer than what the moon cycle is, obviously. And so there's that whole connection there that I've just been really starting to look at. And it's starting to make a lot of sense to me when I'm looking at Venus and thinking about the properties and everything else that's going on. So, what I want to do a little bit too is just talk about a lot of people know the moon connections to mugwort. If you are at all interested in this plant, you've probably heard about the connection to dreams. Now, I've talked about this so much. I appreciate mugwort in this aspect too when it comes to dreams. And I've made medicine with mugwort for dreaming, lucidity, going between realms, meditative states. It is all there that this plant has those properties because it is, as many people know, related to wormwood, which contains the thujone, which is contained also in mugwort, which is a slightly psychotropic constituent that does have the ability to make us feel floaty, feel dreamy. So that's all there. And I totally get it, and I just want to kind of look at this though from when I wrote out a list of the moon properties or the more moon driven properties versus the Venusian properties, my list for Venus is longer. And I don't think it's because I'm biased. I think it's just because there could be more things pointing to the Venusian connection. So we all know that there is the moon connection with the sleeping, the dreams, a woman's cycle, the crone, the silver underleaf of a mugwort, of the mugwort plant, which is always really obvious when you're out in the field looking at mugwort. You turn the leaf over, and there is a soft, downy silver backside to that moon, which is usually of the leaf, which is usually linked to the moon, which makes total sense. The moon is silver. That makes a lot of sense to me that it would be linked to the moon, right? There's also this aspect of mugwort that helps us tap into our deep-seated emotions, which is definitely linked to the moon when we're looking at flow, emotions, tides. That is definitely something that comes through with that moon connection. And then also just deep conscious thoughts. Uh, so whether you want to call it subconscious or your actual conscious mind, that is what we're tapping into when we're using mugwort medicine. And I think that that's where that moon connection really comes from too, is that it has the ability to allow you to sink into some of these emotions in a way that you might not be able to in your waking life. And that's where this strong moon connection to me and mugwort comes through awesomely. And it makes a lot of sense. Now, when I look at it though from a Venusian standpoint, and what I've begun to learn is that, this plant is really has a much broader uh, group, or what should I say, a much broader list of uses than what we might hear in the more westernized version of the plant, because a lot of times it's right away, it goes right to all the things that I kind of just listed, and we kind of miss out on some of the other things that might be coming through with this, which is one of its main uses, particularly in the East, is that it's a beauty tonic. It is known to be so helpful for the skin, for healing it, for beautifying it, for tightening it, for toning it. It is widely used in the East in that way. And when I started to learn about that, it started to kind of my wheels started to turn with more of the Venusian aspects of this plant. And, I just want to say too, I'm 100% open for Venus and the moon to rule this plant. So I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to like argue or throw down the hammer on either sign or either planet or celestial body, whatever you want to say. I'm just trying to say that I'm finding this Venusian connection to be quite strong, and it's actually really profound, and it's been coming through really strongly for me. So there is a lot of nourishment and nurturing energy from mugwort. There's protection that comes through, which I feel like is more this Venus nurturing mother sort of mother protection aspect coming through. Woman's health is another thing, corresponds very well with the moon and Venus, the crone and primordial mother, the grandmother wisdom. That downy underside of the leaf that I was talking about is soft and luxurious, and it kind of also, there's like this beautiful, you want to be luxurious in Taurus and Venus. There's this really, loving the beautiful things in life and appreciating the beautiful things in life. And that is, to me, what mugwort does a lot too, is it helps us to appreciate the beauty in everything. And that's actually one of the messages that came through for me yesterday when I went out and took a break and I went for a little walk and I actually smoked a mugwort cigarette. And that was one of the big messages that came through really strong, was for me to remember and to allow mugwort to help me remember the beauty in all things, good, bad, and ugly. That to me is kind of a Venusian quality as well. There's this beautiful scent in a lot of the species of mugworts, particularly the one that we have on the screen here. It's most aromatic and medicinal during the month of May, which we are in right now, which is majority of May is Taurus season, which again is ruled by Venus. There's this balancing there's this balance that comes from mugwort medicine when you're taking it internally. It can help to balance your menstrual cycle. It can help to bring it back if it hasn't been there. It can just help balance the body in general, which to me reminds me of Libra, which is another Venusian sign. And so if we have Taurus and Libra and Venus, to me, that is earth and that is mother energy. And so this is where I'm kind of going. This is where my weave is at with mugwort at the moment. So moving on to the next slide, I use this slide to illustrate east and west, because to me, this shot of mugwort, it looks like a compass a little bit. And I kind of wanted to get into just the eastern versus the western outlook on this plant, which I've kind of already talked about. But when I started to research mugwort from a different perspective, my research led me to Korea. And Korea has a really rich history of using mugwort as basically like a daily tonic for beauty, for overall health, for vitality, for balance. It is one of those plants that is widely used also in Japanese and Chinese cuisine and livelihood and life in general. So there is that Eastern connection. Now, the Eastern connection usually is different than the West. There's more sometimes of a practical outlook on a lot of things. I think there's more tradition, there's more history in terms of people wanting to hold on to tradition. Here in the West, it seems things are a little more frivolous. They fly by super fast. We're not as interested in tradition or maintaining tradition. Now, that's not to say everybody in the West isn't. I'm just saying, as a general population or a general like program that runs in the West, it's new, new, new. Leave the old. Where's the new? I want it now. Give it to me now. Whereas in the East, from research and just observations, it seems to me that there is more of a thicker chain that is stronger to tradition and to the ways of the ancestors or the ways of the old. And so this is something that is kind of coming through for me when I've been doing my research with the mugwort, and particularly in Korea. Mugwort is used, like I said, every day. And they from all my research, the Korean people were kind of actually surprised when they learned that the West looks at mugwort the way we do, that it's just this kind of like dream tonic that allows you to travel the astral realms and all of that kind of stuff. And then that practical side is kind of left out a little bit. It's sprinkled throughout, information. And there's many people I've heard talk about more, even some of the more practical uses. But when it comes to just the groundedness of a plant that grows so wild there and is used, it's one of the most popular wild plants to use in cuisine in Japan, China, and Korea. And so there are like 200 varieties of mugwort, just as a side note, and 38 of those varieties actually grow wild in Korea. And so there's different types, obviously, that are better for culinary use and better for medicinal use. And typically, the mugworts that grow shorter to the ground and they have more downy material on the underside and on top of the leaf. Those are the ones that are typically used in culinary ways. And then the mugwort that grows like tall stalks with broad leaves it's typically used as medicine, which to me is interesting because a lot of times in the West here, a lot of the types of mugwort that grow here are the ones that have tall stems and broader leaves. And so that was just another little thing that I realized of like, oh, well, that makes sense. That totally checks out, that we would be more interested, or more of the information about mugwort would be pertaining to the more dream magical mystical side versus that practical culinary everyday use. And I think too, as a food, it's really interesting because I started researching all the different Korean dishes that are made with mugwort, and we have soups, stews, meat dishes, which is interesting. They'll incorporate the mugwort into meat, and mugwort is a bitter herb, slightly bitter, and so it helps with digestion. So all of this stuff is very practical. So they're including it with meatballs and in stews and things like that to help the digestive process happen. Also, they use it in fresh rice cakes, also known as mochi, but that's one of the main places you'll find mugwort used in is the fresh rice cakes. And it's known as yomogi in Korea. So that is the name for mugwort, is yomogi. Just a little side note there. So it also is something that I really find interesting that they use like as a daily tonic because it helps to reduce inflammation, and it also is great for digestion, as I said, but it really targets the whole digestive system. So helping people to heal their gut basically is what's going on, which is another practical use as to and a great reason to be putting into their food on a daily basis. I watched a short documentary where they were talking to a couple who basically talked about how once they start incorporating mugwort into their daily life, that everything about their life improved, their health, their skin, their vitality, and they were actually able to help a friend of theirs recover from a really bad car accident because he started also joining them for their daily mugwort tea. And then he started incorporating mugwort into all he did in terms of internal use and external use, and was able to bring himself back from a place where he was deteriorating quite quickly and was not able to keep on weight, and his bones were becoming brittle and things like that. And, they just talked about how they don't take any other supplements besides mugwort. And there was these small mugwort pills that they made, and they would just take those and they had their mugwort tea. And this is just a super seemingly old tradition in the East, which is actually really cool to me. And the other thing too, they are aware of is if you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding or you're a menstruating woman, mugwort isn't the most friendly to a pregnant woman or a breastfeeding woman. So you want to be careful with that. And also it can bring on menstruation. So if you are consuming it on a daily basis, or if you were wanting to add it to more of your food, just being aware of those things is always something that you should just keep in mind. And so now in the West, we have this sensationalized version, I feel like, of mugwort, or it's less practical, as I've continued to say. But this whole, it's more about being out of the body or ungrounded or concerned with leaving this place, which is really interesting. Which, if you're focused and you are here and you are grounded, it's you, we're needing more of that energy. We're needing more of the grounded energy and not so much of this head in the cloud sort of thing. So I think it's kind of interesting that that's just the way that we are shown this plant. And so the next Venusian connection that I came across is right here on the screen. We see Freya. This is a depiction of Freya, the Norse goddess of love. She is definitely connected to Venus. She is connected to the day of Friday, which is Venus Day. And she is also connected and corresponds to mugwort. And I just love this connection. And to me, it makes a lot of sense for so many of the reasons that I've been saying. So I feel like I don't want to just be repeating myself of what I've already said, but I wanted to bring Freya into the fold because she is also corresponds to Frigg. Now, some people think that Freya and Frigg are separate goddesses. Some will say they are one and the same. I do see that they are. I see them as both. I see them as separate, but then I see them as the same. And the reason I say that is because I think that Freya is the younger version of Frigg, if that makes sense. Freya is she is not a mother quite yet, but Frigg is the mother. Freya is more of a lustrous goddess who is kind of related to passion and sex. Frigg also is related to these same things, but in the sense of childbirth. So obviously, sex needs to happen in order for a child to be birthed. So there's these huge crossovers with both of these goddesses. And then obviously you can't deny the name Frigg, Freya, very similar. And Freya also has a brother as well, Frey. So just wanted to bring this to the table. Now, some of the virtues of these goddesses, they are motherly, they're domestic, particularly Frigg, but they're seers. They practice Sadar, which is magic. They and actually in the legends, it is Freya who teaches Odin Sadar. So it is the woman, this this goddess here, who is a Venusian goddess who teaches the man the magic. And so mugwort is always related to magic. Always, and that is I think it is definitely a magical herb. And that's where I think the moon connection can kind of come in there. But I also think that Venus has that same potent magical, those same potent magical properties. And it's just through and through the traditions of Venus, in my opinion, when you're looking at it at the feminine side of Venus. And so Freya and Frigg, both herbalists, medicine women, they are associated with beauty and passion, the sexual energy. Freya is always known for her cats, and as you see this depiction or illustration of Frigg, she also has the cat there with her. But female health and wisdom are also something that come through with them, which is another reason why I think they're usually associated with mugwort for all the reasons that I already went over earlier on. So here we see a beautiful woman with gorgeous skin holding the leaf of mugwort up onto her chin. This is just one example of how in Korea that mugwort is used as a beauty tonic. That is its main thing. Besides having its additives in the culinary world, it is a big, big thing in Korea to have mugwort spas, to have mugwort saunas, to have mugwort facials, to have mugwort toners, using just even mugwort tea as a toner, but literally going to specific spas where they have hot tubs that are filled and infused with mugwort. And you will sit in the hot tub, which sounds glorious, by the way, I've just got to say. But that is like one of the things, using mugwort actually as a way to apply oils. I've just done this the other day with my own self, like using mugwort leaves that were soaked in witch hazel and applying it to my skin just with the mugwort leaf. And that is really incredible and felt really amazing. And that downy softness of the backside of the leaf really comes through. And so I feel like when you're using a plant like that as an applicator for something, there's just so much more of that plant energy that comes through. And it was actually really special. And so this is known to enhance beauty. That's one of its virtues. Brings on supple and youthful skin and a complexion, which is also kind of associated with Venus. It's really, really helpful for people that have sensitive skin, acne prone skin, or dry skin. So there's just a lot of like nourishment that happens. And particularly with with acne prone skin, there's typically inflammation or redness and irritation. And mugwort really comes in and cools all of that down, brings the inflammation down and the redness as well. And so just something to think about on that level. There's also an element of protection. Now, this element of protection usually is talked about also when you're looking at it from more of a magical standpoint, because from my experience, mugwort is one of the plants that can allow you or help you go to or travel through the realms, but protect you while you're in them. Now, there's also a physical protection that comes from mugwort when we use it topically. And the reason for that is because there is a high amount of amino acids in mugwort, in particularly in Korean mugwort, and these other varieties that they use for the beauty purposes. It's high in amino acids. So when the amino acids of the mugwort are applied to our skin, it allows our body to produce proteins more rapidly, which then creates a nice skin barrier with the proteins being built up. And so that's one of the elements of protection that can be looked at from more of a practical standpoint or a physical standpoint versus the protection that someone might invoke with mugwort while doing dream work or something else. So that to me was really freaking cool. And I really, really, really love that aspect of it. And I just got to say, like, from a personal experience standpoint, using mugwort as something of a beauty tonic or for skincare has been pretty profound for me. And I have been doing that now. I mean, I've been making mugwort soap for almost a year now. And then also making, infused oils and skin toners. And it has been really, really nice. And I think also the scent of the mugwort comes through really well when you're using it in an oil or a toner, and that's been really fun to explore and just work with and see the differences in my skin while I've been using the mugwort, and then finding out all of this information about how much it's revered in the beauty world, particularly in the East. It kind of blew my mind a little bit. Like I felt like that I had this pull to start using mugwort in that way, like topically, more physically. And then all of a sudden, like, I kind of got all these downloads and I started researching it. And then that's when I started to look at the Venusian connection. And I was just like, whoa, man, I totally was guided to kind of be here in this point, and it feels really good. And so it's just really cool to be talking about it basically and sharing all this. So let's get into a little bit of the doctrine of signatures. Now, I'm going to take a sip here. For those out there who have been following me, you know that this is something that I really love, the doctrine of signatures. I think it's really important to understand. I think that there's so many places to go here with the doctrine of signatures, particularly here with mugwort. But the first thing, now you might have to kind of, move up to the screen here. Move close to your screen. But if you look at this photo of this mugwort leaf, you can see tiny little pores in that leaf. Now, to me, this indicates that it is skin medicine. And these same pores can be evident when you're looking at comfrey. And comfrey is also a skin medicine. It's a bone medicine, it's a hair medicine, no doubt. But these pores that you see in the leaf, to me, it shines skin, and it kind of shows you that it is meant to be used to help tighten the pores, to refine the pores, to tighten the skin, and that comes through really strongly for me here when we're looking at this leaf. So there's the leaf of mugwort is actually quite soft and supple. And so that is also one of the things to keep in mind. And that whole aspect of the mugwort being used in May, that is something too that in the East, when they are harvesting mugwort for culinary uses, they typically will harvest it early on because once it gets into the summer months, it gets a little tougher. You can still eat it, but it might not be as pleasant. And that goes with like everything, anything you grow, any kind of food that you grow. Usually, the younger, more tender greens or anything like that are always more pleasant to eat. And sometimes in the later months, the bitterness might come through a little more and those sorts of things. So that's something to keep in mind, that these youth tonics or anything like that usually are made with young mugwort. And that is really interesting as well, because to me, there's like a Venusian quality with that, with like that youthful beauty that most people are after. People want to look young and they want to look beautiful and vibrant and shiny. And this plant really kind of has that energy going on in spades. And so we've got the soft downy leaves, the underside of the leaf, which we have right here that you can see. So this is a photo that I took this year of very young mugwort, actually. So it's not, the fuzz hasn't been developed as developed as it will be, like as it continues to grow, but you can still see that silvery, soft, downy underside of the leaf. And to me, that really indicates just soft, silky, dewy skin. That is what's going on here. There is the underside of it. So it's protected under that leaf. Like at the top, you have the top leaf where you have all those pores that come through really strongly. And then in that underleaf, it has that extra layer of protection, that extra soft layer of protection, which we just talked about. Mugwort will help us to develop on our skin through the amino acids. So that to me is a really nice indication. And typically, this soft silvery color is usually indicated of the moon, as I spoke of earlier, which I think definitely is legit. Now, when you look at the other slide here, to me, this came to me just the other day. But this looks like a slender hand, like a woman's slender hand. And there are 5 points on this leaf, which is another indication to me of Venus. Usually Venusian plants like rose have 5 petals. Okay. And so we have the 5 points. You have the 5-pointed star of Venus. You have the hand. We are 5-pointed beings. There is such a deep connection to the earth with this, the earthy energy of Venus, which I think is way stronger than what the moon is. Because what is the moon? Just saying. We don't know. I've become a little more skeptical of it. And I'm asking more of these questions of myself and of other people. And I'm bringing these things up because I think that this plant right here, as I look at this leaf, even if I were to see the silvery underside, to me, it shouts Venus to me. It shouts Venus a lot more than the moon. And also, I thought of this being an indication of mugwort lending a helping hand. And I love that. It literally just came to me and I wrote it down because I'm like, dude, that is what's going on. Particularly when you look back at all the things I was talking about with the Eastern ways of looking at mugwort, where it's more practical. It's a daily herb. It's used all the time. It's super common. It's not like only used for these more whimsical, magical, dreamy states. It is used in a practical way as well. And it's not to say that, you know, they don't have like a magical connection to mugwort in the East. There's all sorts of magical connections and, looking at mugwort as an herb of protection and things like that. And they honor it in that way too. But I think that they see it more as like just a livelihood plant versus how it is here, where it's always usually typically just talked about from those magical perspectives. Okay, so I wanted to just show this bowl of soup. So this is mugwort meatball soup, and this is a Korean soup, and it looks freaking delicious, but it's just an example of how they would prepare mugwort. And you can see the green in the meatballs themselves, and that's where they would roll it into the meatballs, and then you not only are you having the flavor that comes through, but you're also having the element of the digestive aid that's going to help you digest a more fatty meat, which this is pork from what I remember researching. And pork is a fatty meat, and so it's going to help your digestive juices to start flowing if you have that bit of bitterness from the mugwort in there. And I just think it's such a beautiful way to incorporate this plant into food. And I'll say I have a meatball soup that I started to prepare before my stream, and I put mugwort into the meatballs. I put the Artemisia vulgaris in there because even though I don't have the Korean mugwort growing, Artemisia vulgaris has a way lower content of volatile oils than Douglasiana does. And so it's a lot softer. It's more downy. It has more of a soft leaf. And also because it's still in its younger phases, I was like, I'm just going to throw these into the meatballs in honor of my Mugwort Musings stream today. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can prepare your own toner. Now, these are some photos that I took earlier last month when I was making a mugwort toner, and I just wanted to show through photos, and I'm just going to talk people through it, but it is very easy to make a mugwort toner or any facial toner for that matter. So here I've got my witch hazel, and I've got a 16-ounce jar that is almost full with chopped up mugwort. And so this is the beginning phases of a mugwort toner. You can see it all beautifully chopped up there. Just the color of it, seeing that silver shade under the leaf. It's really nice. The scent of this mugwort is just amazing. It's Douglasiana. It has the most beautiful scent. I think it is one of my favorite plant scents ever. And it's hard to describe, but it's like herbaceous. It kind of has like a camphor scent, like sagey, almost like a slight turpentine in there. It is just, it's bar none, like one of my favorite scents. And when you work with the mugwort in its young phase like this, that scent comes through really strongly in alcohol, in the witch hazel, or in an oil. So that's what I have prepared here. And then you can see all I did was I pour the witch hazel into the jar. You shake it up. I put a piece of parchment paper between the lid and the jar, close that up, label it, shake it. And then you store that in a cool, dark place for, anywhere from 2 to 6 to 8 weeks, whatever you want. And you can strain the plant material and then you'll have your facial toner. Now, you can use that plant material to apply the witch hazel also to your face. So, after straining your witch hazel, you can just take those leaves that are soaked with the witch hazel and literally apply it to your face just like you would if you're using a cotton ball. Now, that's not going to last forever, obviously. You might be able to keep it for maybe 1, 2, or 3 applications. You could put the soaked leaves, if you wanted to save some, put them into a separate container and put them into the refrigerator and cover it, label it. And for the next few days, you'll have a wonderful, cool, very cooling tonic for your face. And you can just use the straight mugwort. And it's freaking beautiful. I mean, it felt so awesome and it felt primal and it felt right when I was doing it. So that's just a little bit of a little just show and tell of how easily you can make a facial toner. And then from having this base, you can add things to this or you can just use it as is. You don't have to add anything, but you can add hydrosols, you can add vegetable glycerin. I wouldn't recommend essential oils to a toner because this is more of a water-based concoction. And so sometimes the essential oils won't distribute very well in like a water-based toner like this. So you might get like a concentration of essential oils. And then if you apply that, it could be irritating. Whereas if you're adding essential oils to like an oil, it blends up much better and it's distributed a lot better. So just a little tip, but you can do whatever you want. Feel free and experiment. But just a little word of caution there whenever you're working with like water-based things, and essential oils sometimes don't blend the best. You could just shake it really good before you use it if you wanted to, but that's just been my experience there. Now, I want to talk about moxibustion and smoke medicine with mugwort. So moxibustion, for people who aren't familiar, is something that is used in acupuncture and with acupressure points. And what we're seeing here is literally a cone of mugwort that has been rolled, and the downy parts of that underleaf are basically kind of like rolled off of the leaf. And it's rolled and rolled and rolled. It becomes a very soft, like almost cotton like substance, and you can form it into cones. Sometimes you'll see them formed into almost like sticks. So they're sometimes called moxa sticks. Sometimes they're used and just held over the acupressure points. Sometimes they're put directly on the skin, and you can see that there's been like an oil applied to the skin, and then the moxicone is put on top of it. You also can buy moxibustion like little discs. Sometimes they're made of wood, sometimes they're made of clay. And it's basically almost like having an incense holder. Like if you have a charcoal incense holder where you'd put the charcoal disc in and then you would put your plant matter on top. It looks a lot like that. And what you're doing, you would put the moxa into the holder, and then the holder goes onto the skin. So there's like a barrier. So the heat is what we're interested in here, okay? And mugwort is well known for being an herb that does bring warmth. It brings warmth to the body. If you're taking it internally, it can bring warmth to the skin, and it brings warmth to cold and damp conditions. And so that is a lot of times what's going on with moxibustion. It is to be moving cold, stagnant energy. And so it's such a beautiful practice, and I think that it's really, really cool, and I really love studying it. I've known about it for many years. At one point, I would like to make my own moxa because it's just, I feel like it makes so much sense to me that this is something that would be useful for people. And so the other thing too with this, you can see how they're not using a flame to ignite the mugwort. Like this downy substance from the mugwort, the moxa, it's easily combustible. So they're just literally using, like, it almost looks like an incense stick that is lighting the moxa. And yeah, it's really cool. So if you are going to place it directly on the skin, just be forewarned that you want to have some experience with doing that, or either going and getting it from someone who is experienced with it, because it can cause burns if you're not paying attention, but most people will be paying attention. So it is a really lovely practice. But if you're not wanting it directly on the skin, I recommend looking into the moxa holders or the discs that can be put on to the skin. I even saw just like rounds of wood that were used, so if you have something like that around, you could do that. And typically the moxa is collected from Korean mugwort, and that is Artemisia principi, prince. It's just Princeps. That is the Korean mugwort, and they will typically collect this and they will dry it for like 2 to 3 years. So it's not something that they are rubbing off the leaf and then using right away. They have a whole system of how they dry their mugwort, which is actually really cool, and I recommend looking into it. They have a special system how they dry the moxa, and they also have a special way and technique to dry the mugwort for tea so that it tastes better. And so there's a whole like world out there of learning that. And that's been really fun to dive into as well. So it's not just about like throwing it into a paper bag or hanging it to dry. They have this whole drying method where sometimes for the tea, they'll have like fresh mugwort and they'll have hot plates, and they will like be almost like cooking it on the hot plate and being very attentive to the temperature of the hot plate, and then like flipping the mugwort almost constantly, and then they're blowing a fan on it at the same time. And so it almost like kind of, in my opinion, would probably like cure it a little bit so that it's not a harsh heat. It doesn't happen fast, and it doesn't take a long time for it to happen. So it's not going to be losing a lot of its qualities, which might happen if you dry it quickly, or if you like leave it to dry for a long time. Like a lot of the oils or the constituents will be like evaporating off. Whereas with how they're doing it, it's actually really cool to watch, and them talking about the difference, how you can taste the difference when it is dried properly like that, and slow and low, almost like a curing process, versus if it's just like hung to dry and then used as a tea. Like there's like a smooth flavor, very pleasant, that comes from it when you're drying it properly like that. So that is one of the things with the mugwort that I'm realizing too, is patience. And they treat it with patience, they use it with patience, and mugwort is a patient herb, and it helps you to be more patient. It helps you to relax and slow down. And it is the wisdom of the crone. It's the wisdom of the mother. It's the wisdom of the goddess, which the goddess and the mother and the crone, in my opinion, Mother Nature, they know that patience is a virtue and that it is crucial for life, and that we are where we're at because that's where we're supposed to be, and that everything in due time will come through. And I think that's one of the elements of mugwort that comes through strongly in the traditions of the East. And that's one of the things that I really respect about it too. And that's one of the differences, I'll say, between the Eastern and the Western view of it. most of the in the West, it's like, I want to be blasted off. Blast me off. I want to be out of my mind. I want to, no, I don't want to feel something. I want to just be in the dream state, head in the cloud sort of thing. And I'm not saying that's everybody. And I'm not saying I haven't been there. Trust me, I get it. I understand. But I think that there's just such a stark difference between that. And it comes back to what I mentioned in the beginning of the West wanting everything quick and fast and change and progress and this and that. Whereas in the East, tradition is sometimes held on to more in a sacred way. And it's just something that I've observed. And Mario and I have talked about it quite a bit. And he's actually kind of been on that same tip lately as well, just like observing that. And so anyway, it's just something that is kind of cool to think about when I think about the way that mugwort is handled, looked at, and used in the different regions. So here we have some mugwort from last year that I harvested for smudges, and this goes along with that smoke medicine that I was talking about. So smoke to me is clearing. Smoke is slow. Smoke is calming. Smoke is relaxing. Smoke just it there's this element of the spirit world that comes through with smoke, in my opinion. And this is one of mugwort's strongest properties, in my opinion, is that smoke medicine. And so here we have the mugwort Douglasiana. It's almost about to flower. That's my favorite time to make smudges out of it. And so you can see those nice buds on there. And so I've got a lot harvested here. And I made a lot of smudges last year, actually, because the mugwort grows so freaking well here. And it's one of my favorite plants to grow. So just wanted to showcase this because it's just beautiful to look at. And you can just see too, this is an older mugwort. So this is probably, I would say, in maybe late July, early August. And so you can just see like the leaves straighten out, they become more pointy. And then that silver backside of the leaf is more predominant than it was when we were looking at those photos from the younger mugwort, right? Like it really comes through. It's very silvery and white. And you know what? Maybe this is part of the moon connection here. Maybe the moon. Okay, here's just something that's coming to me. So I'm just going to spout it out. Maybe this moon and Venus connection, all the things that I'm pointing out, perhaps when mugwort is younger and it's in its younger time, that is more of the Venusian time. And then as it grows wiser, as it grows towards the crone, as it grows towards that time where it's about to go into flower, this is where the moon element comes from. This is where the smudges and the smoke medicine comes from. Just spitballing. It's literally just coming to me right now. So that's kind of where I'm just gonna put that one out there and yeah, see who picks it up or doesn't. Whatever. Either way. All right. And so up here too, we have my mugwort smudges complete. I love making smudges. I understand smudges are controversial. Some people don't like calling them smudges anymore. So bundle, a seining stick, whatever you want to say. I love to make them, and it's a really nice, really nice therapeutic project to do, in my opinion. And it's just, you can't go wrong with having these around because they make wonderful gifts. You could even probably use this as like a moxa stick, even though it's not a traditional moxa. So not to be confused with moxa, because this is like the full plant material, whereas the moxa is just the downy underside of the leaf. But I mean, if you didn't have moxa and you wanted to experiment with using moxa or the moxibustion, you could, in my opinion, definitely use a smudge stick or a seining bundle and try that on yourself. And that would be you would not be applying that to the skin. You would just be like, having your smudge stick and then like holding it over, holding it over the area where you were wanting to cleanse or what you were wanting to move the cold stagnation. That's what you would be doing. And so there's different ways of looking at that. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend just doing your own research, and I don't see why you wouldn't be able to use something like a mugwort smudge for something like that, because it's very similar in what's going on, and there's that smoke medicine, right? So, for the most part, that is my slideshow. Those are the points that I really wanted to get out, and I am interested to hear what people have to say. I haven't checked the chat yet, but I would like to, and I hope you guys learned something new. I hope it was well received, and perhaps this makes you think about Venus and the connection that mugwort has to it. And you can decide for yourself what you think has a stronger connection, the moon or Venus, because to me, I'm not necessarily here to convince anybody of who or what has a stronger connection or correspondence to it. These are just some of my observations from looking at this plant from a different standpoint and then going through the gateway that I felt that was open for me to walk through to explore this. And I'll tell you, it's been like really cool. And I feel like I've learned so much more about mugwort by doing this. And I feel like I've connected with her in a much different, deeper way than I ever have before. And I feel like I've tapped into her essence a little bit more. And she's showing me new ways to utilize her as medicine. And anytime that happens for me with a plant or with anything in general, I honor it and I allow it to flow through, because we need to be able to keep our minds open and have a broad perspective on certain things and not always just feel like we have to stay in the lane of what you heard someone else say or what the book said or what you thought was the truth 6 months ago. Because it's like there's so many times where if you do that, it just kind of becomes stifling, and then it becomes like mundane or it's boring or there's no personal connection to that what you're working with. And to me, something like plants and herbalism and working with nature is super intuitive, but it's also just practical. And for me, whenever practical energy comes through, I'm like, what's up? Because that's my jam. And so when I started to see the Venusian qualities come through stronger than the moon, my spidey senses were just going through the roof, and super happy to share this with you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and I'm going to come in here and look at the chat and see who's here, because it's been my first live in a while. So, Green Geen, what's up? Vintage Love, good to see ya. Alicia Evans, thanks for being here. Moon Sprout, nice to see ya. Trish Clark, howdy, howdy. Jillian, good to see you. Oh, my man, Symbolic Studies. Mario is in the house. What's up, babe? And let's see. California Contarian. Hello. Beautiful Blooms. What's happening? Thunder Chicken. Howdy, my friend. Good to see ya. Let's see. Batman Beltane Bach Privacy Lover. Nice. Appreciate Mario and Michelle incorporating images not viewed as often elsewhere. Oh, thank you. Assists with visual learning, recall by diversity with an images selection, i.e. Korean mugwort soup. Gratitude. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, and actually the cool thing that Mario and I were talking about with this one, a lot of these images are mine and that I've taken. Obviously not the Korean soup isn't mine, but a lot of the images of the actual plants themselves are mine. And so that was really cool, just to be able to have our own library. But yeah, we try, and Mario influences me in a big, big way to try to strive to get images that are going to entice people and show things from a different angle. So thank you for noticing. We appreciate that. Artiseer, what's up, Miri? We got Bomb Collat, Gato Fish, Smudgewort. I like that. That's a good one. Inner Sun and Vision. Hello. Thanks for being here. And I think that's it. Well, I'm glad some of you are saying that you guys learned a lot. That's great. I'm really glad to hear it. Glad to share it with you guys. And then to continue on, we have the standard end slides here for anyone who's interested. michelleshealinghome.com for all things healing home, as I said in the beginning of the episode. Thank you to all the patrons out there. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you, as always. Patreon.com/thehealinghome if you'd like to come and join us over there on Patreon and support. A handbook for herbal and natural cat care is still available up on my website. So go check that out if you're wanting to incorporate herbs and natural remedies into your cat's life. They will thank you for it, and you will thank yourself for doing it, because you will really improve the quality of their life in such a big way. And it's just an amazing thing. So I share tips about DMSO and MMS with cat care, and that is something that sometimes isn't always talked about. As I will say, always use with caution, but I do put some of the safe measurements that you can use for your cat if they are in a dire strait situation. The full moon offering newsletter, you can sign up for that at my website underneath the newsletter tab. And soon, very soon, I will be having my latest issue come out. That will be launching on Wednesday at midnight. So if you haven't signed up already, head to my website, michelleshealinghome.com, and sign up for the newsletter. I still have 2 bars of my comfrey nettle and pine shampoo, and I also have 2 bottles of my elderberry and reishi syrup left. So that's from the still current moon offering of number 44. And up on the screen, you can see my current menu as well. All of these things can be found on my website, so you can head there. You can also ask me about custom orders if you're wanting to have like a batch of soap or something for an event. Email me at michelleshealinghome.com or michelleshealinghome@gmail.com, or you can fill out a contact form on michelleshealinghome.com for that. Next full moon offering newsletter issue is coming out on the 23rd. Like I said, will be launched out on Wednesday night at midnight. So sign up so you can get the new offering. And, I don't typically do this, but I wanted to share with you guys what is going to be shared for the offering. So we've got my Mugwort Earth Hag soap here. I don't know if it's going to focus. Regardless, Mugwort Earth Hag soap, like I was talking about in the stream, I've been making this for about a year. This was my introductory hit to use Mugwort in a different way for skincare. And I'm so glad I did, because this is my favorite bar that I make. And the scent of it is amazing. It has black walnut husk in it. So it's an exfoliator. That's what you see on the top there. Like you see like the black speckles, which aren't really focusing very well, but regardless, it's just wonderful. And I really love it. It's so nourishing to the skin. You can use it as a body bar. You can use it just for the face. It's just wonderful. So that is going to be available. I also have my Earthy Glow face oil, which is a combination of fresh mugwort and fresh comfrey infused almond oil. There is jojoba oil, organic hemp seed oil, and there's also organic black seed oil in this. And it is scented with lavender and frankincense. It also has ho wood, liang liang, and clary sage. This stuff is awesome. I am so pumped to share it, and I've been using it myself, and man, it's a notch above, I'll say. I really enjoy it. So we're going to have that, and we're also going to have my Mugwort and Rose facial toner. That's also some of the photos that I showed in the stream was me making the base of this facial toner. So in this toner, we have the fresh Mugwort infused witch hazel, rose hydrosol, vegetable glycerin, and mugwort flower essence as well. So I love incorporating flower essences into things like facial toners. It's wonderful. So it comes in a 2-ounce bottle with a spray top, which is really nice because the spritzer on that just puts out a fine mist. So a little the 2-ounce bottle is a good amount when you have a mister because you're not, like, over saturating, um, a cotton ball or something like that, you know? So, now let's see, we'll do back to the slides here. So, next week, I'm going to have Megan McDonald back on the show. We're going to talk more about urine therapy, or sometimes known as Shivambu. We had such a good conversation, and I feel like we cracked the surface of the subject of Shivambu. And after our initial chat, we talked backstage for a while, and she has so much more to share, and I'm going to bring her back on the Healing Home. So come join us on the 28th of May at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Symbolicstudies.com for all things Mario. As always, you can head to his website, learn more about him. You can learn how to support him. You can see his blog where he posts all his videos. He has prints. He has his study guides. You can book a tarot reading or a study session with him. He's also available for design work as well. Patreon.com/symbolic studies to head over there for exclusive content with Mario, which he has basically, like, it is ready to go. It is the cannonball is in the cannon, and I'm really excited for him to launch it. So head over to Symbolic Studies over on Patreon if you are wanting to learn more about his offerings. And with all that said, folks, I think that's going to do it. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate you guys. Hope you learned a little something new. Hope you just take some time to contemplate about the correspondences with plants. Where do they come from? Check in with yourself, check in with the plant to find out if that's what they are wanting to be associated with or not. And just be open to different things. So until next time, I hope you guys are doing well out there. Take care, and we will see you real soon. Cheers.